Hello everyone, I'm back again with the second installment on the same topic which I took in previous video, which was concept development in architecture. First of all, I want to begin this video by saying thanks for all the positive feedback that you gave on the previous video. And now I'm going to continue on the same topic, which is concept development in architecture. The last point that I mentioned in the previous video, if you remember and heard clearly, was intuition. Now, intuition is something that comes from within, and how to develop this skill where something comes from within. First of all, let's understand what is this intuition. A lot of times when we develop a concept in architecture, we rely on external forms, materialistic forms. For example, you might want to get inspired from a bird, you might want to get inspired from a knife, a box, or whatnot. But all these concepts become too literal, and in the end they become a little weak also. You would not want that. So when I talk about intuition, something that comes from within, you need to understand that even a place or a space where you're about to design wants to be something. Now, intuition is to understand what it really wants to be. Now I'm going to break down this important thought. For example, if I visit a site और साइट पे एक बहुत बड़ा rock रखा है और rock is demanding for attention, then you have to understand that rock or that place wants to be something. It itself wants to be something. Now the concept is derived from that thing which is demanding attention there. Intuition is to grasp and observe what is there and to understand what the place wants to be. This is very well, this idea is very well put by a very famous architectural theorist by the name of Christian Norberg Schulz. You must have heard about him. And he repeatedly mentions this word spirit of the place. कि place की एक अपनी spirit है और एक aura है जो वो emit करता है, एक vibe है वहाँ की, और उस vibe को समझना और उस vibe को एक built environment में convert करना, translate करना is an architect's job, and that can inspire the concept of your built environment. That to understand what is the spirit of the place, and that spirit of the place becomes the concept for your design. Spatial design. The next point, now that we are done with the 5 points, the 5th point I've discussed just now, which was intuition, now we are going to move to the rest of the 5 points that I have to cover in this video. The next point that I'm going to take now is a little difficult to understand, but I'm going to break it down in a very simple language. The next inspiration for concept development could be abstract. Now, this is one of the most misunderstood words in architecture and the allied disciplines, because abstract is something which is seen as absurd rather than abstract. Abstract literally means something which is still in the thought process, but it is yet not converted into reality. For example, whenever you see abstract art, you see very weird forms present in the art, and you are not able to understand that what the artist is trying to convey, because the artist himself or herself wants to display the thought process. He does not want to display the final product. तो abstract को किस तरीके से concept में हम as an inspiration ले सकते हैं वो समझते हैं. For example, let's say there is a wall and you have to design that wall. Now let's say the wall is seen as a canvas on which you have to make an art form, and the thing that is inspiring you on the wall is the blankness on the wall. Now the blankness becomes the concept. Let me take a step forward. The wall is blank, and maybe the incompleteness of the wall becomes the concept, and rather than making the complete forms and objects or drawings there, you leave them incomplete. You leave the spectator to understand what this piece is about. That is the concept which can be termed as abstract. So sometimes you have to understand that what is the thought process behind designing the process, and the thought process becomes the concept rather than taking inspiration from something. So abstract itself can be a concept. I hope this one is clear. I know it's a little the word abstract itself requires a video of its own, and I'm going to take it up, but for this concept development, I hope this gets clear in this point. The next point that I'm going to take up is metaphor. Metaphor is a poetic device. You guys have heard it. You must have studied it in English also. Metaphor is comparison of something which is similar, and rather than calling it as something else, you call it as the object through which you are comparing that. For example, अगर एक bird है और आपको लगता है कि एक बिल्डिंग एक बर्ड जैसी होनी चाहिए, तो बिल्डिंग को बर्ड नहीं बुलाएंगे, उस बिल्डिंग को बर्ड जैसा नहीं बुलाएंगे, बर्ड ही बुलाएंगे. A lot of architects have done it brilliantly. The one that I'm going to mention in this video is Santiago Calatrava. Santiago Calatrava repeatedly has done this in a lot of his buildings. The best example would be a bridge. The bridge is inspired from a harp. A harp is an instrument, a musical instrument which mermaids play. And this is the river where he has made this has a lot of stories around mermaids, and he has made that bridge in a shape of a harp. Here he is literally converting that idea of a harp into a built reality, and hence you can say that this is a metaphor that he has taken inspiration from to convert his idea into a building. He has literally converted that idea into a building. Sometimes it's not really advisable to literally convert that idea into a building, because that can lead to funny buildings like the fishery department in Hyderabad, or I don't know which place that was, but that became a very, very funny building. So rather than literally taking it, even in metaphor, I would advise you to play with the form, or to try to convey that concept through your purview of that object. For example, rather than literally converting a harp into a bridge, probably you might want to add your own inputs to that harp. Otherwise, too much of literal can kill the whole idea of a building. It does not seem as a very well thought out concept. Okay, moving on. The next method of developing concept would be symbols. For example, whenever you see buildings around, these buildings are trying to convey a meaning, and to convey that meaning they are derived from a symbol. Now, for example, in some cases these symbols become very, very literal. For example, a church building where the plan is the cross of the building, and in some cases the symbols are very, very hidden inside the buildings. For example, all the modern and contemporary buildings that you see around are the product of the spirit of the place. For example, if you see all these big commercial companies like let's say Airtel, they are literally trying to convert their logos into the buildings, which is not a very good idea. But yes, people do take concepts which are derived from symbols. So you might want to reconsider taking symbols as the concept, unless you come up with something which is so interesting that can be used as a symbol that can translate into built reality. But yes, symbols do provide a very intelligent way for students as well as well-established designers to derive a concept from them and then convert that into a built environment. Okay, the next point that I'm going to take up is something that is very close to my heart, because a lot of famous architects have taken up this method of concept development and have converted something so beautiful out of it. And this one is being poetic while developing a concept. So when I use this poetic as a method of developing concept, I'm not only talking about the form is poetic, not the literal form, but it has a much more deeper emotional value. One of the best examples that I can think of right now would be Jewish Museum by Daniel Libeskind. Daniel Libeskind has literally depicted chaos in his building. The staggered forms, everything that the Jewish history has endured is converted into a chaotic staggered form. Even the windows are not very rectangular, they are all moving in trapezium, sharp cuts, and when the light falls on the spectator from these sharp cuts, you feel the pain that he's trying to depict through these buildings. Moving on, the last and the most important I would say inspiration while developing a concept for architecture is culture. Culture is again such a vast topic that it requires a video of its own, and again, as I was talking about abstract, I will take culture also as a main topic for one of my videos. So let's talk about culture. So when we talk about culture, the simplest way that I can break it into for students would be it's collective thinking. Collective thinking of a place can inspire architecture. For example, I recently visited Puri in Odisha, and when I visited the place, I found that there is a specific kind of planter where the guests and the family members sit together. It's almost like panchayat, and people sit together. Now that becomes the concept for that place, because the culture has influenced and resulted in a space, and you might want to give that space in a newly designed bungalow there, or a koti there, whatever you're designing there, or it can be a very important element in the landscaping. So culture plays a very, very important role, and culture is so vast that you can take so many inspiration for concepts while you're designing a built environment. So this was the last one. I hope all these points that I mentioned in my previous videos and in this video will help you a lot in developing concepts in architecture and even in allied disciplines. Yeah, this one I really want to mention, that whenever we talk about concept development, it is not limited to architecture, it is applicable for all products and all the allied disciplines. For example, furniture designing, product designing, or whatever you want to design, fashion design, shoe design, whatever. So I hope you really like these videos, and previous video and this video combined, it covers a very, very vast topic of concept development in architecture. I hope you really like these videos. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. Thank you so much.